again. So I'm back on my Talk to Jo page. I'm here every Thursday at 9:15. And I thought today it would be good to share a little bit about just getting through our everyday lives. This sort of thinking has been sparked by several things that have happened. My business coach last week, she was talking about patience. And she said, we see patience as a virtue, but in fact it's a business strategy as well. And this really struck me, especially today, because, in my life I'm trying to get a business up and running, and, I've got no experience of doing this, especially with all the social media type of things. And so it's so easy to look at what everybody else is doing and start comparing myself to other people. And I was messaging someone this morning about how they advertise, and when they told me what they were doing, I had that sort of really, in a sense, a sort of terrible crushing feeling in my chest as I realised that they knew so much more about it than I did, or that they were sort of forging their way forward in a way that I haven't thought of yet. And I think this applies to our everyday lives, and it struck me that this would be a good thing to talk about today. And if you're here, please do say hello, and in a minute I'll check and see who's here. So there's sort of several different things I think would be helpful to think about in terms of how do we get on with our everyday lives and how to help ourselves be a little bit happier. And one of the main things is about comparison. And I think it's very easy. I think a lot of us feel that we aren't really very good at doing stuff. And it's easy to compare ourselves with others when we're not feeling very good. As I did this morning. And one of the ways that we can tell when we're doing this is the feeling we get inside us. So if we're comparing ourselves with somebody and it's an unfavourable comparison, and let's face it, most of the time it usually is, we compare ourselves with someone, we have an unfavourable comparison with us, and we can know how it makes us feel by just noticing what's going on in our bodies. And I think that's such an important part of learning how to be happy on a day-to-day basis, is to really notice what's going on in our bodies. And our bodies tell us, they give us signals. We're able to know what's happening to our thought processes by watching what's happening in our body. And so if we can become more aware of the sensations in our body, that will help us to understand what's going on in our lives. And for me this morning, I noticed immediately that I was making an unfavourable comparison with somebody, because I felt that sort of that sort of feeling in my body. And so because I was aware of that, I was able to sort of pick myself up on it straight away. And then the sort of thought process continued, because I realised that I was doing unfavourable comparison. And then the next sort of life hack that I brought in was to recognise where that comes from. And we can often be quite fearful, and we can come from a place of thinking, people call it the sort of scarcity model. We can come from a place of thinking that there's not enough to go round. And that particularly comes in when we don't feel that we're good enough. And we can be in this place of fear. And I think recognising that we're in a place of fear, that we don't think we're good enough, we don't think there's enough to go round, we don't think that we're going to be able to get on with our lives. When we're in that place of fear, that's our sort of scarcity model. And if we can recognise that we're there, we can start reminding ourselves that life doesn't have to actually be like that. And part of that practice is to use gratitude. And so I'm not very good at keeping a record of things that I'm grateful for, because with the scarcity stuff, what we're doing is we're looking at all the things we haven't got rather than the things that we already have got. And so it's really helpful to try and do a gratitude exercise. So this week I decided to get my gratitude diary out, and I was actually quite shocked when I realised how long ago I'd started on this gratitude diary. It was about 7 years ago, and in actual fact the number of pages, I don't think I've actually filled in 20 pages yet. And that was a bit of a Oh, right. Yes, I really need to attend to this. So I've sort of started trying to write down stuff on a daily basis. Of course, it's only Thursday today, so I haven't got very far yet. But even today, when I was thinking about what would I put in my gratitude diary, I sort of realised that yesterday I had a really fabulous session with one of my clients, and I'm really, really grateful for that because I learned so much from that, and I'm so grateful for this particular client who keeps just showing up, and we keep working on the stuff that this client's bringing, and each week we're seeing little changes, and they're able to put little changes into place. And I thought, I'm so grateful for that client being here in my life because I can see that she's making changes, and I can see that I'm able to help her, and I'm really grateful for that. And this is something that I've already got, you know, I've got something to be grateful for there. And so that's a sort of way of helping ourselves tackle this idea that we're not enough and that there isn't enough, is to think, you know, what is in my life that is really great. And that's obviously about my stuff, but I wonder if you could think about your own life and think, well, what's in my life that, you know, rather than thinking, what haven't I got, what have I actually got? And I remember talking about this with my sister a long time ago, and she said, you know, if you have to write down 10 things every day that you're grateful for, it really makes you think about what's in your life that you can, that's there, the really small things. And she said it was even things like she was able to buy, she had a recipe that she was cooking and she was able to buy fresh cherries. And so it's something, you know, even small things like that, and it really makes you start thinking about your life and what you've already got. So that's one of the things that that you can think about. I'm just going to check my my iPad here because sometimes it's really difficult to see what the comments are that people are making. So you know, I'll have a look and see if I can see if anybody's saying anything. I've just sort of had to look and sort of press the comment button on my phone, and it's all just gone horribly wrong. So so I'm just going to have a look. It is really sort of quite a new skill to be learning how to do this, and I failed completely because my iPad hasn't got the live feed on it. So you know, please do comment, and if I'm not here, if I don't reply to the comment in the live feed, I'll reply to it afterwards. Yeah, so gratitude and recognising what's going on in our bodies. And then another thing that we can do to really help ourselves, well, there's a couple of other things that I thought of. One is sort of getting out there and seeing what you can do to help other people and to focus on what you're doing that helps other people. So that can be things like, what are you doing in your work, or how can you reach out to people? Yesterday I was watching some YouTube videos with Brené Brown speaking, and if you haven't come across Brené Brown, I do recommend looking her up. And she was talking about the things that build up trust in yourself for other people. And she was saying actually it's the really small things that help people to trust you. And I think this is where partly the whole thing about patience comes in as well. For me, in building up my business, you know, one of the things I think is, oh, you know, I'm coming on to do these live feeds, and does anybody ever watch them? And of course, you know, I do get feedback that people are watching them, and I can see there's a couple of you here at the moment. But it's about just continuing to turn up. And, you know, just thinking about that and how that applies to the people around me. I've got several friends at the moment who have adult children who are really struggling with life. And it is really hard because change takes time, and I think this is true of all of us in whatever we're doing. And my friend Lisa, who's on my coaching course with me, she was talking about the coaches thing about patience, and she's actually a health coach, and what she does is she works with people as a personal trainer. And she said, you know, we want to see change so quickly, but it takes a lot of patience, and you know, we have to keep plugging away. And this is so true with those of my friends who have adult children who are going through a really difficult time at the moment, you know, going through anxiety and depression. And it's so hard because there isn't a quick fix to that. It is a case of just plugging away on a day-to-day basis. And as parents, it can be really difficult to have to go through that because we don't see the end place. And we can't see what's going to happen, and it's so difficult, isn't it? We have to just keep plugging away and keep loving and keep turning up and keep asking and keep encouraging, even though we don't actually see the outcome and we can't see it for a very long time. And Brene was saying it's the little things, it's the phone calls. If we've promised to make a phone call, to actually keep our promise. Just those little things that help us to reach out to other people and help people to know that we're there. You know, just being true to our words, just carrying on, plugging away, and to keep telling ourselves this does matter, and we can't see the difference that it's making, but it will make a difference ultimately, and that we know that we're there for other people. And those sort of acts of kindness can really make us feel better as well, and that can really help us to keep going in our lives too. And then I can see that I'm sort of making this quite a long live feed, and I'm sort of aware that obviously that takes people's time up, and I don't want to, to make the live feeds too long. But one other thing was about creativity as well, and this is something that I'm finding in my own life. It is really helpful. We think that we aren't creative, but we are creative in all sorts of different ways. I've got a friend and she said, oh, I'm not creative at all. And I phoned up to have a chat with her, just to sort of pick her brains about things. And while we were chatting, she was cooking. She said, oh, I'm trying out this new recipe. And, it's an old family recipe and I really want to work out how it works. She's somebody who cooks sort of Indian food. And she's also somebody who said she's not creative. And the thing that struck me about that is she actually is really creative, and her area of creativity is in her cooking. And I've discovered recently, I've started up an Instagram account, and I just thought, my God, why haven't I been doing this before? Because I just love taking photos on my phone and sharing them. And for me, that's my sort of creative outlet. And there's all sorts of ways that we can be creative. For some people, it might be gardening. What inspires you? What helps you to feel good? And that's the area where you can be creative. So I said that was the last thing, but there is one more thing which reminded me, because that particular friend told me. She said, one of the things that I've actually found is when I'm going through hard times, is that's the time when I grow the most. And I think that's so true. It is so difficult when we're going through a hard time, and it's really difficult to be happy in those hard times. But in actual fact, what those hard times are doing is they're helping us, and they are helping us to be more resilient. We learn so much through those hard times, and it's from that place that a lot of growth comes. And with that growth, that's actually going to help us to be happier in the long term. So sometimes all we can say when we're going through a hard time is, this too shall pass. And that's it's sort of challenging when we're in a really difficult situation, but it will pass, and actually we are learning from it. So if nothing else, if you're going through a hard time at the moment and it's really difficult, it will pass, and you will come out the other side, and you will be stronger because of it. And so I'll just leave you with that thought. And finally, please do feel free to contact me if you need any help. You can contact me via the Messenger app. There's all sorts of ways you can contact me. You can call me, you can email me. I'm all over the internet for my sins. So please do feel free to get in touch. And I'm sorry, it is really difficult to see the comments when you're doing a live feed. Sometimes they come up, sometimes they don't, and they haven't come up today. I haven't worked out how to do it on my iPad. So, but I will have a look if you've made any comments during the live feed. I'll comment now I'm finishing. Thanks very much for joining me. It's really nice to see that I'm not just speaking into the ether and no one's watching. And I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.